Darlene Hansen, and welcome to our CDAN's Communication Access Connect. I want to thank you all for being with us today, and again, thank you for your patience. Go, Jose.
Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Tony Hansen. Estamos aquí reunidos. Gracias por su paciencia. Sorry, I was trying to catch up mentally here, but I missed your official title. Like,
oh, I'm with Disability Voices United. I'm the Director of Communication Rights.
Okay. Ella es la directora de comunicaciones de Disability Voices United.
Okay, so today we have a guest speaker from Department of Rehab. That's Jonathan Deguzman, who's not on my main screen, so I'm having a hard time. Like, you're in here, right, Jonathan? There you are. Yes. Okay. So Jonathan Deguzman is going to be our speaker today. We wanted to talk about how Department of Rehab fits into this whole picture of access and communication. So Jonathan's going to give us a presentation, and then as usual, we can have questions coming through the chat and then get into a conversation following.
Vamos a tener un invitado especial, un orador especial, perdón, del Departamento de Rehabilitación. Se llama Jonathan Deguzman. Estamos explorando cómo encaja ese departamento con todas las novedades que hay con el términos de acceso y comunicaciones.
So Jonathan, since we're doing the consecutive translations, if you can chunk what you're saying and then Jose will translate, that'll be perfect for now.
Yeah, brief sentences are best, please.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. So welcome, Jonathan. And I'm going to make sure you are a co-host, Jonathan. Are you? Yes, you are. So you should be able to see this, share the screen if you need to. I don't know if you need to.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Acceso a Jonathan para ser coanfitrión.
I'll turn it over to you, Jonathan.
Tiene la palabra, Jonathan.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say thank you for having me here. I am actually teleworking from home, so I'm honored to be here.
Buenas tardes a todos. Es un gusto estar con ustedes. Estoy trabajando remotamente, como pueden ver, y es un gusto estar con ustedes.
I wanted to talk about DOR services and actually what Department of Rehab is all about, and just give you kind of a summary of what we can provide.
Entonces voy a hablarles este día sobre los servicios de DOR y cómo el Departamento de Rehabilitación puede apoyarles y su función.
With Department of Rehab, our biggest services is to help individuals with disabilities find employment, whether it's part-time or full-time.
Entonces, el trabajo del Departamento de Rehabilitación es ayudando a las personas con discapacidades a encontrar un empleo, ya que sea tiempo parcial o tiempo completo.
So when it comes to application status, what we do is we provide a DOR application for you to fill out and provide your information, your general information.
Ok, entonces lo que hacemos en términos del estatus de aplicación, DOR les da una aplicación para llenar con su información.
Especially with the information you provide us, we also request that you provide documented medical documentation of your disability within at least a year.
Ok, entonces en términos de la información que nos brinda a ustedes, les pedimos que ustedes nos brinden documentos médicos hablando sobre su discapacidad en especial, que tenga por lo menos un periodo de un año que sea reciente.
So once you provide us with that, you are determined eligible with the documents that you provide, whether you are eligible or not for services based on if you have a permanent disability.
Entonces, al brindarnos esos documentos, eres elegible con documentos, ya que seas elegible o no para recibir servicios. Okay.
Good. Afterwards, once you're determined eligible for services, we create a individual plan for employment.
Entonces, una vez que es elegible para servicios, generamos un plan para empleo, para trabajo, para adquirir trabajo.
And so once we create that individual plan for employment, there are specific services that are provided to you to help you move forward in pertaining to employment.
Entonces, una vez que se genere ese plan individualizado de empleo, le podemos encontrar los servicios específicos que van a necesitar por poder adquirir ese trabajo.
Now, when it comes to services, there are different aspects that a person can get into. You know, we do work with high school students and also adults, but also older adults as well.
Ok, entonces como componentes de los servicios que tenemos, una persona las personas con las que trabajamos típicamente son estudiantes de preparatoria, también son adultos e inclusive hasta ciertos adultos de la tercera edad.
For the high school students, we have a program called Student Services, and that provides work experience for those high school students.
Y para los estudiantes de preparatoria tenemos un programa que se llama Servicios Estudiantiles, Student Services, y eso les ayuda con la experiencia laboral que van a necesitar.
And we provide student services between the ages of 16 to 22. So they can be in high school or they can be in a transition program within the high school.
Y para los estudiantes de high school.
Everybody, I'm so sorry, Jose, to interrupt. Finish that, and then we have the correct number now, which I'll put in the chat. So go ahead.
Voy a finalizar esta traducción y luego les vamos a dar el número correcto para la línea de conferencia. Para los servicios de estudiantes de high school, pueden ser estudiantes de 16 años a 22 años. Pueden estar en high school o en un programa de transición. Y ahorita vamos a darles el número correcto para la línea de acceso. Okay, let me read it out loud for them. Give me a second. El nuevo número lo pueden encontrar en el chat, pero si no lo pueden ver, es el 551-241-6310. Y déjenme ingresar yo mismo para ahorita estar con ustedes y poder interpretar todo lo que dicen.
Give them a minute to set that up.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Really appreciate it.
If you do not know your PIN.
Sorry, it was asking me if I was the host, but I don't know, because I'm interpreting, I should be the host. I
Okay,
just
no,
use
let me
the
go
lines.
in. Maybe I have to start it. I'll go in and start it real quick. Okay.
Or wait, Mason, I wrote you a note in the chat.
Okay, it should be working now. You can go ahead and get started. Go back. Sorry so much, Jonathan. You can continue.
Okay, no worries. Jose, you good? Okay. With the work experience for students, it's provided where they can be provided with 100 hours of paid work experience. Oh, would you still like me to pause or just continue? Okay. Especially with the work experience, it is recommended that if a high school student does have a location for a work experience, they can actually make that into a paid work experience. And that usually they can actually use that until, you know, they graduate from high school, or if they would like to continue it through transition program, they can do that. But That's part of student services. And we also provide the pre-ETS services, which is the 5 parts of, pre-employment transition services. So it's post-secondary education, work readiness training, work-based experience, and a lot more in terms of getting students prepared to really think about what they want to do after high school, especially in a career. We talk about things that, especially when they're doing the work experience, they could, if they want to talk about going to high school or going to, to college or going to a trade school, we can actually talk about that and kind of give them kind of guided steps on what to do. Now especially for adults, adults, they can actually go into different types of training. It's really based on what the labor market says about it too, but also if the availability of programs that are in San Diego. Now, if a person wanted to do a trade school or any type like that, where they wanted to, let's say, they wanted to do a mechanics, auto mechanics or something like that, we can actually, we will talk about, what type of program they wanted to be interested in for mechanic. Do you want to do it at a community college, or did you want to do it at a private, So based on that, Department of Rehabilitation will provide a certain amount of financial support, especially if it's based on, community college rate. So if the program is available in like say Southwestern College or at San Diego City College, then, but you decide you wanted to go to, a private school, then we will pay, Department of Rehab will pay the program based on that community college rate. So we try to do it with comparable benefits, and especially we always recommend our students to apply for financial aid and also apply for any type of comparable benefit to see if they can use those resources first. And if they can, we would use those resources first, and then DOR can pay the difference, like the remaining. With different types of programs or training, we do help with like books or supplies, anything that's needed for you to finish that program for you to go into employment. Now, Darlene.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Jonathan. I'm seeing that there's Jose. There seems,
yes.
If you could ask everybody to mute their phones who's listening in on interpretation.
I did, and there's still somebody that's kind of like still speaking in the background that's causing the interference. So I've mentioned it like a couple of times. I'll mention it again, but yes, I have.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Sorry, Jonathan, again.
No worries. So especially for the programs that are available, what we do is we will create an individual plan for employment. It's a kind of a contract between this client and DOR, and it's services that are going to be provided based on for you to gain employment. Whether it's full-time or part-time, those are the services. Sometimes we will have clients that are just looking for a full-time job and they don't want to do training or they don't want to go to school. They just want to get assistance in finding a job. So what we do is we refer them to one of our community outreach vendors, and they will provide with the services of employment services, job coaching, job development, job readiness, but also resume building. So they will assist them in trying to apply for positions. It's not really basically placing them in employment, it's assisting them in finding employment. And also, especially, I got a list that Darlene, of ideas that Darlene gave me in terms of which we can talk about, but if you guys have any questions, let me know. So when it comes to job coaching, we do have two different types. So if you are a general client who needs support in terms of on-the-job training or on-the-job support, we have short-term support is what we call it. And it's for within 3 months based on what type of support, but also for job coaching, that is for our clients who are in our supportive employment program. And that is for individuals who need additional support or who are part of San Diego Regional Center, who usually they are referred to us through Regional Center and they would like to find part-time or full-time employment. And we do provide the job coaching within that once they are placed in a position for at least 4 to 6 months. And then after the job coaching is kind of not, I would say diminished, it's lowered each month in a percentage. Once they are done with that, they transition into being closed successfully, but the job coaching still continues with Regional Center. So that's another aspect of of support that we can do on the job. And in terms of benefits and how they would affect using services through DOR, again, it's based on the program that you wanted to do. So if you decided you wanted to go to, I'm just putting that out there, auto mechanic, and you chose a program at, say, Southwestern College, we can provide, the full support on that because it's with community college rate. But if you decide you wanted to do a private school for the auto mechanic program, then we would kind of compare the difference and we would pay it based on community college rate. So if it's more expensive for the private school then rather than the community college program, then we would pay based on the community college rate, and then the client would be responsible to pay the difference. But we can also provide the additional support of books, supplies, anything like that. And so it's basically, we always try to give the client informed choice of whether they choose or not. But if we give them the informed choice of, okay, if you choose this direction, this is what will happen. If you choose this direction, this is what will happen. Let me see, also in the questions that were here.
Oh, you want me to read the questions on the side here?
Oh yeah, I have them here. In pursuing technology assessment. So when it comes to technology assessment, it's basically based on the justification of what type of employment you want to go for. So if it's a technology assessment for you to be as productive as any employer in your employment, then what we do is we would have a mobility assessment based on the type of job that you are seeking. So like if there's additional equipment that you need for your job that first and foremost, like especially if the employer cannot provide it, they would need to provide us a justification of why. But we can assist on finding out, okay, based on your employment goal, what are you going to need this assistive technology for? Is it for you to communicate with somebody? Is it for you to communicate with your clients? It's really based on what your employment goal concludes with, and also what you're going to use it for in terms of your employment. But we would usually go through assistive and technology assessment to determine, okay, is this the best equipment for you? But also, we would ask, especially when it comes to technical assessments or technical like assistive technology, if the insurance does not pay for it or cannot, provide any financial assistance, then we would go through the assistive technology assessment. But in my part, especially if a client is requesting for assistive technology that is based on their employment, I would go through team manager and say, you know what, this person needs this type of technical assistance or assistive technology for them to really work productively on their job. So, you know, and then it goes by approval too, in terms of, okay, this is what their job is, this is what they're going to need. And so it goes through prior approval, but it can happen. But it is a big discussion that we have, especially during the application status, when I first get to meet the client and what they need in terms of how they can be successful in their employment. Let's see. I have the question.
So one question, Jonathan, is do you offer, I think you answered this, but if you could just say it one more time, does Department of Rehab offer any support in the form of financial or otherwise for those not going into trade school, but pursuing academic program?
Yes. So for school, especially if you wanted to achieve a degree, like let's say a bachelor's, associate's degree or bachelor's degree or anything like that, it can be supported, but if it has to be based on your employment goal too as well. So that's why the individual plan for employment, the IPE, is really a big discussion on what type of program that you want to get into and what type of education do you want to pursue for you to be a potential competitive candidate for that type of job. So if, let's say, for example, a high school student who wanted to go for their bachelor's, but didn't get accepted to any state or university level, we always advise and inform the student that, okay, so how about this first? How about you start off with going to a community college and slowly try register for classes and, you know, kind of connect with disability accessibility program within the community college and start, you know, adjusting to being a college student. You know, we really want them to work towards going to getting a bachelor's degree. So we always start off with an associate's degree. But let's say we have adult in their 30s, in their mid 30s, who has a bachelor's degree already and they wanted to pursue a master's program, anything higher, right? So if they wanted to pursue anything master's higher, that again would be based on their employment goal. What do you want to do with that master's program? And especially if you wanted to do the master's program, why didn't it's all these questions of why do you want to pursue it based on getting that master's program, and especially what the labor market says. If the labor market says that, you know, you don't need a master's program, but you can get a job with the bachelor's, then we have to justify what the master's program is all about. Do you want to do it for personal reasons, or do you want to do it for an employment goal that you wanted to do? So it's based on also, especially the financial assistance. If a client, again, wants to go to like Cal State or a UC, it can be supported. But if they wanted to go to a private school or anything like that, or out of state, we would, based on if the program is available at the Cal State or UC rate, we would pay that amount. And if there's a big difference in Cal State or UC rate, then we would pay that rate, and then you would be responsible for the difference. But we would always recommend the client to apply for financial aid or any scholarships or anything like that to kind of help with and assist with financial aid or anything like that. But also we can help with books and supplies as well too. So, but it's basically on like tuition and all that stuff.
That makes sense. Another question was, when you go forward to a private school and they graduate, like to be an auto mechanic, for example, will DOR still help them to find employment?
Yes. So let's say, okay, they decided they wanted to go for, the private school, but, we pay for based on community college rate. We will pay for the community college rate and any supplies that you need. Afterwards, when you are done with the program, we forward you to one of our vendors, one of our community partners for employment services. So they will assist you in finding employment. They'll get you ready for job interviewing, job development, resume building, how to look appropriate for like a Zoom call or an interview in person. So you will be forwarded into employment services. That will be part of your services that will be in your IPE.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Here's another one for you. What if a person potentially needs technology in order to get a job in the first place?
So if they need assistive technology to get a job in the first place, then if it correlates with what type of job they're looking into, like especially if it's communication, like a term like assistive technology and communication, usually, again, it goes through mobility assessment or assistive technology assessment, and then that will determine, even though this may work for the client, we want to give the client an opportunity to see other options as well in terms of assistive technology. So, it is possible to have, assistance in getting that assistive technology to get that specific job, especially if it has something to do with direct communication or to communicate with other people.
Okay, good. And then someone else asked about regarding assistive technology. Does approval for the assessment and actual assistive technology apply to the job training, including college?
Yes. So especially if you're going to go to, like, let's say a community college or a Cal State University, it is always recommended that you also apply for their disability support services within the university or campus, because they do have assistive technology that is available for them in there, and they also have resources available there. If you can't find the assistive technology that is not, that doesn't work for you, especially for school or academics, then, you would need to talk to, your counselor about, okay, there's an assistive technology that, will work good for me, but I just wanted to see if it's possible to obtain this. So that's what I always recommend, to ask your counselor first, if it's possible, because all this is prior approval in terms of money spent to purchase these assistive technologies. We want the client to be able to use it more than once, but also, be able to be the best that it can be, especially for the student.
Great. Just real quick for everybody before it gets lost in the chat here, Megan did put in a link to Disability Rights California if you need any additional information from them. So quick, you can go up and grab that if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to you, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Does DOR offer any pre-employment training for adults or non-students?
So in terms of pre-employment training, the thing that we provided, and we just started it this month, is we provide the work experience, but also we provide adult work experience. So especially when you think about pre-employment training, the work experience, it's not a job placement. It's a program where you're able to assess what it's like to actually hold a job for 100 hours. So it's 100 hours of support that you're going to get, but also you're going to get feedback from, from the work experience, especially when you're being referred to a vendor. And that can really give you an idea of like, okay, you know what, this type of job duties don't work for me, but this type does. So if that's what you're specifically talking about, pre-employment services, we do provide, that's the work experience. But also for student services, we provide the 5 pre-employment services. So it's post-secondary education, job readiness training, also self-advocacy. That's a big one that we really talk into in terms of owning your disability, but also have a narrative where you feel comfortable in talking about your disability and knowing, okay, what accommodations that you need to really be successful as an employer.
Great. Okay, here's an easy one maybe. Do you also pay for bus, gas, or train fare, like some kind of transportation?
Yes, we do provide for bus pass or training. I mean, bus pass or not a mobility train. We do provide for bus pass or a bus fare, but also again, for that is pertaining to employment services. So the bus pass is for you to actually go to, like, let's say, to meet with a job developer or to meet with a potential employer for an interview. Now for, usually some of our clients will use it for gas money or use it for the person who is driving them for their gas, as their gas money. So it can be used for that type of transportation, but it is for the employment services, yes.
Okay, very good. And then what if your goal, your job employment goal is to, requires you to communicate, of course, but so do you provide support in the form of a communication partner, like a trained person to be your communication partner for work?
Like an interpreter or an ASL interpreter, like that?
It would be like that, but it's more personalized. It would be a person with you all the time.
Oh,
not 2% with you all the time, probably.
well, in terms of that, that would fall into question of the employment, especially because under ADA law, an employer should provide the accommodations necessary for you to be able to be as productive as any employer. So the first step is the employer should be able to provide that kind of assistance. But in terms of, like, would it be kind of like an aid or an attendant?
Right, kind of like an aid, but it's a trained aid, but yes, kind of like
a trained aid. Okay, so if there were, that could be, it can't be permanent, but it can be temporary based on the need of this person and the employment goal again. So if this is because these services are pretty much based on a temporary basis of you trying to find employment or find your training. So if you're looking for something that is much more permanent, there are resources that we can provide in terms of providing that, but we wouldn't be able to provide like a permanent attendance or like aid for you to, based on that.
Okay. That makes sense. Well, I mean, that answers the question. Okay, so what about a computer for college or work?
Yes, like we can provide assistance to provide you. We provide, again, we use the comparable benefits. So we provide the basics of a laptop with, Microsoft Office, everything for you to actually complete assignments for school or training, and especially for finding employment. But then again, also, especially if think about it as kind of like a loan in terms of being provided to you a computer. The computer is there for you to use the resources necessary for you to gain employment. So if you don't finish your program, you're going to have to return the computer, but that's what it is. That's what the computer is there for you to do. So it's all based on the employment goal and what you want to do. But especially for school, we can provide it for you to, even a printer too. So if you needed to print out assignments or do anything like that, we can provide that. But then again, you have to, within the contract, you need to finish the program.
Yeah. So that's a good one for the next question, because they're asking, what if a client starts in a community college program based on an employment goal
Mhm,
and then finds that it's not right fit?
mhm.
Can they switch goals and plan to begin a new program?
Absolutely, but there's also has to be a justification for it too. Why do you want to make the switch from so-and-so to this now? Did you look at the labor market? Did you have an opportunity? Was there an internship that you were interested in? Like all these terms pertain to your employment goal and a full part-time or full-time, either one. But absolutely, you can definitely switch your IPE goal.
Okay, good.
Oh, and
If,
I wanted
sorry,
to add too, you can also amend your services too, if you
Mm.
wanted to. You can always add or subtract services in there.
Okay, that's good. If it's written into your plan, is behind the wheel driver's training at a driving school an option for transportation?
That will pertain especially your employment goal. So if your employment goal, let's say you're a truck driver, well, let's say you're a bus driver, you pertain to a job as a bus driver, but you need the driver's training. We can provide that type of assistance, but again, it needs to pertain to your employment goal. But if it's something that is personal, like you just want to get your driver's license, you would need to do the whole thing that everyone else does is, you have to pass the written test. Once you pass the written test, you gotta, do the training and all that stuff. But if there was, you have to do all the legal stuff for, actually for us to do, mobility driver's evaluation, because it is possible, but it also pertains to your employment goal. So like if it's going to make you more independent to do it, then yes. But also you got to do all the legal stuff that you have to do is pass the written test for that driver's permit and everything.
Okay, here's one that is different. And I think it's Nirmala, and I think there might be some clarification, but I don't know for sure. Does DOR provide internship opportunities and screenshots for clients who are pursuing a professional career?
So for when you talk about internships, especially if you are interested in doing an internships, the community colleges here in San Diego, they have a program called Workability 3 or 4. Workability 3 is part of the community college system, and Workability 4 is for the Cal State or UC level. So if you wanted to, especially at Southwestern College, they do have community college Workability 3, and they do have lists of internships available that you can pursue. But again, it's not like you're going to be placed in the internship. You need to, they will assist you in applying for the internships. So we do recommend students, we do refer them to Workability 3 for community college, but also you have to be a student. But you don't have to be a full-time student. You can like attend one of their job readiness classes, which is like a credit, non-credit, just to give you kind of an idea of what it's like, to get prepared for it. But at the same time, you can work at their Workability to provide assistance on finding an internship or anything of your interest.
Thanks. Will these pre-employment training 100 hours affect your SSI application?
No, it has nothing to do with your SSI. Remember, this is not a job placement. This is just a training that is not going to affect, especially with the 100 hours. It is a 100 hours that is not going to affect. It has nothing to do with your SSI. It won't affect. I know you. There's a certain amount that you have to make, but it's going to be below that, and that's only for the 100 hours. So it will not affect your SSI.
Okay, great. Someone's wondering if you can talk about the voice options program for communication devices. Do you know of that?
The voice options program, I've heard of it, but I've not used it yet. I have not used that program. But I can provide information for you on that. I'll need to talk with staff.
We have that information too that we can send out to you guys, but
Okay.
just in general, it's a program where you can get access to an iPad if this is going to work out for you, an iPad. Then you'll be provided with an iPad, and then one of, I think there's 5 choices of communication applications that they have within the program. And you go through and William's mom will have the information, and she's probably already put it in here, knowing her, but you go through the department, it's SCILS or something like that, to get those applications in.
Okay.
Let's see. Is DOR helping to promote or support alternative employer methods for vetting job candidates? For example, interview options that don't involve conventional HR hoops. He's wondering if DOR is in part of helping to support alternative methods to getting jobs and getting through the interview process.
What we, especially through the interview process, that's a big notion that we've been discussing. Especially we have the OJT, which is the on-job training, especially for clients who did get a job, but won't basically have the necessary training. So our on-the-job training program will basically have the employer do the on-job training, and we can pay for that training. So that's another factor. There hasn't been any discussion on alternative options for placing individuals on a job in terms of especially going past the interview. We've had job developers do support in terms of preparing the client and taking the client to the employer and letting the employer know that they're the job developer and then they are assisting. But in terms of accommodations, those job developers really do help with kind of factoring in the barriers that they're having, but also kind of promoting this candidate's strong actions on what they're good with, especially being a potential employer. But that's all I've heard so far in terms of alternative options, but nothing in the forefront.
Okay, thanks. Does DOR Student Service assist students with college application and scholarships for disabled students? Do you guys have that information?
Yes, we do. We do help with applying for those types of applications. But again, it's an individual basis. Sometimes the client will like to do it on their own and just guide them, or sometimes they like us to do it for them. And then we just see like, okay, this is what we're putting into your application. So we can assist, but it's depending on the student, how independent they want to be.
How about this one is, let's see, if the student with disability is on track for earning a high school diploma, but want DOR services for college tuition, is it better to invite DOR to the IEP meeting and be part of the ITP, the transition plan? Or should you just go directly to DOR and apply for services when you're about to graduate?
I would recommend the first part and really invite the counselor to their IEP, because that will give the counselor an idea of where the student would like to, especially the parents, where they would like their child, or I should say their student, of where they would like to transition, especially. And it will give them an idea of what the student would like to do once they've graduated from high school, and if they wanted to go into a transition program, or if they wanted to go to college. That will give them an idea of where they can actually have this client and where they can transition them to. Because if a student wanted to continue with DOR, we would need to transition them to VR services once they've graduated from high school. If they're not attending a transition program and they just graduated with a high school diploma and they want to still continue with DOR, we need to transition them into a VR client. So it's a complete transition from student services to VR client. So they're considered an adult, a general client of ours.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. Anything else in here as far as to Jonathan? Otherwise, I'm going to open it up to just our conversation. And then Jonathan, if you want to stick around and maybe jump in, that would be great. I mean, if you needed to go, I understand that too. But we would love to have you. Usually we open up our community to converse here. I was trying to see if anybody's saving their head of their hands. Or I think part of the one question that was coming through that I don't think is your thing, Jonathan, is but is this group's thing, is having communication partners after school life, like in adult life, in your work life. How do we get the appropriate level of communication partner support to the individuals? Again, that might not be your thing, but that is a conversation that was having. What does anybody have? Oh, and then someone else was asking, hey, this is for you too, Jonathan. What about financial aid? Does DOR help with that too?
What in terms, do you mean applying for financial aid or just applying for it?
Yes.
Yeah, we can assist with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Arlene, I'm sorry, we have a question from Karen Bonacci. She had her hand raised.
oh, there she is. Okay, great. Thank you. Karen, sorry about that. Go for it. Oh, here, we have to unmute you, right? 1 second. I can't unmute you. Ed, how do I unmute her? Karen.
Hold on, Darlene, I've asked her to unmute.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a daughter who is in a day program now. She's with self-determination, who we did work with DOR. We did indicate what we thought her capabilities were. We were in a day program, and I felt like there was a disconnect between DOR and the day program as far as getting her trained in a job. We were looking at medical transcription or medical coding
Okay.
for her because she is very adept to computers and terminology, medical terminology. And but she, she's in a rock and a hard place. She's autistic, nonverbal. She communicates very well with a device. She uses a computer very well, and she's a very visual word learner. So she liked the medical terminology, the breakdown of it, everything. I felt DOR didn't really explain the process that we needed to go in, and relied on the day program to assist her in building skills. And it just didn't happen because lack of support, lack of experience in knowing what my daughter needs to be trained in, lack of understanding her behaviors. So we got nowhere. It ended up, her behaviors got worse in the day program. So then we had to back off of DOR. Now we're in self-determination. We're doing a lot better. And I'd like to know, to get maybe some feedback from you on where do we go from here? We still have the same, her behavioral issues have gotten a lot better. We can, we were thinking about pursuing the school route again, but you indicated employment or the workability 3 and 4, the internship,
Mhm.
because I'd like to see where she's going to be at before we really determine if this is the route for her.
Mhm.
So maybe you can give me some feedback on where to go from here.
So in self-determination, is that a program that she's currently in?
It is the new law that passed in July.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was in the pilot program, so this is our second year in self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we created her own program here at home with the skills of
It's a regional center
getting
funding.
ready for a job and
It's hang on, Karen, it's a regional center funding design. That's what it is. So it means
Okay.
that instead of getting vendor services, the person whose program is now done through self-determination has they can access whatever community resources are appropriate given their plan
Mm-hmm.
as well.
so
Okay.
we have a coach that can help support her, in school and in employment and that, but we don't have I don't know where to start from here, because I felt like I didn't get the support from DOR. I know I have to. So what DOR did at that point was they said, well, let's work on the behavioral issues and then let's reconvene when you're ready. And that's
Right.
all the feedback they gave me.
Okay. So since she is part of the self-determination aspect, and she's doing well?
Well,
She's
we've
doing
made
well?
quite a bit of improvement since we started, yes.
Okay. So with the self-determining, what is the goal for your daughter and what you like for her to pursue, or what she'd like to pursue?
Again, medical coding.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what that entails. That was one thing. We didn't know the resources to go to. She didn't get any job training or she wasn't involved in any of the classes that you guys do for job training. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I asked that and I really never got an answer. So she's still looking for a part-time job in medical coding, anything with medical terminology at this point. She'd like to do, even if it's just data entry on medical coding.
Has she held a job before?
She volunteers,
She
but
volunteers.
never has held a job.
Okay, so I would, especially if I was her counselor, I would approach it from where she is now. So she is in a self-determining program, which she's good, she's ready to go, and she's in a good place in terms of moving forward. Now, I think what would be, this is my part, this is just my opinion of it. What would be beneficial is for her to experience adult work experience and actually find her a job duty or job location where she can do medical transcript for 100 hours. So she can see and kind of feel what it's like to actually hold a position for 100 hours, and just kind of let her kind of examine her environment of like, okay, is this an environment that I would like to be in terms of doing computers, behind the computers? That's how I would approach it, because, she had her bump and now she's stable and she has her, she has the support of her family. Now she just needs the support of the training. So I think what would be a best possibility of moving forward with your daughter is to do an adult work experience. So she doesn't have the pressure of being in an employer, of working part-time or being full-time. She can have the work experience where she can really evaluate and, communicate with you and like, Mom, I don't like this, or Mom, I did like this. especially within the 100 hours. I would go really slow with her in terms of just her experiencing the 100 hours of work experience. From
Okay.
there, and then from there, if she, determining on the communication from you and myself and your daughter, if she is willing and ready to do it go into employment, like go into like training, like what it's like to be taught, like doing medical coding or transcripting, then, but it's a determining factor of like, okay, is she ready for the training? But I kind of want her to kind of put her toes in the water of what it's like to really be a medical transcript, idea of, what it'd be for 100 hours.
So for the adult work experience, do I go back to DOR and tell them she's ready for adult work experience? And we already have a coach and just help us try to find that. And then they send us to the assistive support, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is where I had the problem.
Yes.
So I know I can request, because it didn't work with them, I know I can go back to them and say this was an unmet need
Mm-hmm.
with those services, but I'm not sure about.
I'm going to
what
interrupt for
adult
1
work-
second. So Karen, what you might want to do is connect with DRC. And I think Megan put the information in here somewhere. Maybe you can drop it in again, Megan. And then they can help you tease out which step you're at that you need to connect with next. Okay, for their intake process. I think that might be helpful.
But the term adult work experience is I think what I need to understand better. Is that a term with DOR, or is it just a term throughout the job aspect of
So what
the
she's asking
letterman?
is adult work experience something that Department of Rehab orchestrates and funds?
Yes, it's something that we fund because it's a paid work experience.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a paid work experience. That's why I wanted to start really slow with your your daughter in terms of, okay, and especially if you're going to request it, I like to start my daughter in adult work experience. I've spoken with, a DOR counselor who did a presentation, and, I know that it's available in San Diego. So I would like to have my daughter participate in that.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. So adult work experience is the difference between the student work experience and adult work experience.
Yes,
It's
completely different.
Okay.
But it's the same 100 hours though, but it's completely different.
Great,
I'm going to move
thank you.
on to another question. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome, Karen.
So Jonathan, someone's asking, from DOR student services to VR services, is there another intake interview, or is it automatically transition over?
Well, it's just kind of a catch up. It's not really an intake. It's more of, okay, do you want to continue with DOR services, but we're going to transition you. So we wouldn't really do an intake. What you would do is you would fill out the DOR packet as if you were a general client of ours.
Okay.
And then I kind of just transition all the information that I have from your student services into your VR services. And especially if the student has already an IEP, I can determine you that day that that you decide you want to do it, because I have your IEP, that's your proof of medical documentation.
Great. And then someone's asking, is there such a thing as workability 1 and 2?
There is one, there's not a 1, but there is a 2. Workability 2 for it's for adult school. So there are workability 2 for adult school programs in San Diego.
Okay. And then you're from San Diego, but do all the Department of Rehabs in the state function in the same way?
Yeah, especially in all of California. Yes, they function the same way. Especially our adult work experience that came out like barely last week. So we're we are really advertising that to provide adult work experience for our clients who really want to, without the pressures of employment.
Wow, nice.
Mhm.
Is there a work at home program for disabled now since it's of the pandemic? And so like if your job is to work at home. So
Mhm.
if so, can your job coach come to your house?
Well, it's also depending on there has to be a lot of justifications if you want to work from home, like especially if your disability will not allow it because you're immune compromised, or you have a severe disability. Like it can shift to working from home, but it would be a process in which, okay, we would talk to the employment services and tell them, I'd like to work from home. We don't have a specific work from home program. It's just basically a request of, I would like to work from home. Can they assist me on finding positions that are available? And, if there's, equipment that is needed, like a computer or anything like that, that would need to be discussed with the counselor in terms of, okay, this is what type of work I'd like to do.
Mhm. And then someone was asking, what about for neighborhood jobs like that would be more personal, self-employed kind of things like recycling or water maintenance, lawn maintenance, watering the lawns or walking the dogs, these kinds of personal self-employment things. Do you provide any kind of training or support?
Yeah, that for self-employment training, that especially upon discussion, that will need prior approval in terms of the financial aspect of it, and also it would be a lot of background checks. So it's kind of like a 40-page proposal if you'd like to do it in terms of self-employment. So it is possible, but I can't say yes or no, because in terms of depending on what type of self-employment you'd like to do, and especially depending on the candidate, do they have a history of owning their own business, or is this the first time they're actually doing this? There'll need to be justifications like, okay, what is it about this that you wanted to do? And especially, can your disability, will there be barriers for you to prevent from you operating your business? So there's a lot of, it is a possibility, but it's all a determining factor of, the person's disability, but also their history too.
Mm-hmm. So William, one of our DVU interns here, who also is an augmented communicator, he wrote for you an example of what a communication partner would be for them. Because people are talking about, what about if I need a communication partner for work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here, I'm going to read that to you.
Okay.
William says, I rely on my communication partner to support my typing or spelling on a letterboard by coaching my motor skills so that I can access communication. Some examples where I might need help are turning to the right page, muting or unmuting, holding or changing between modalities. They also assist with my regulation when I become overwhelmed. So it's a very personalized person.
Mm-hmm.
So that when the different questions have come in about communication partner and how can Department of Rehab be a part of that process, or are they a part of that process? That's what they're talking about, that level of support.
Yeah, that level of support. I've never had that type of level of support, but from what staff have told me, it has to pertain to leading to employment. So if it is something that you need to communicate directly with, like, your staff or employers or customers or anything like that, or for you to even manage your life, especially to manage your life, that would be kind of a personal aspect that do work unfortunately can't support. But if it has something to do with employment and you pertaining to employment, it's only temporary that we can support it, because the goal is for you to reach your employment goal and for you to obtain that goal for employment. And especially after you're done, especially once you're hired, the accommodations in terms of work that you'll need, especially to work productively, that would be determined of what your employer says. So that's where self-advocacy and also the job developer comes in. But for me, I've not had a level of communication aid that high before. So, but I mean, it's also, it's not off the table. There is a possibility, but again, it has to be pertaining to employment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a helpful question. How to write employment goals so that you can justify a college degree is necessary for the employment goal.
Mhm.
What kind of goals are you writing to justify that college degrees are necessary for employment?
Well, when you look at, especially for an employment goal, like if someone wanted to do a specific employment goal, I would look with that. I would say, okay, let's look at the labor market. What does it say? And then, if it says like it's, it's a job, it's a potential job where, it's very competitive. You can easily, be competitive candidate for this. Then afterwards, I will look into, okay, so what type of education do you need for that? And then if the majority, especially when you look at job positions and job ads, they usually pertain to what type of education that is needed or recommended. So if we would say, if 5 out of 10 of them say, okay, you need a bachelor's degree for this type of position, and you need this specific type of bachelor's degree, then that justifies your employment goal and to support your education for it. But if 1 out of 10 says you need a bachelor's degree, and it's not really recommended, it only experience or a certificate, then we would look at, okay, which is more important, which is the fastest way where you can get to get into that goal quicker, the bachelor's degree or the certificate, and if the majority of them say, the certificate really does, is really recommended in all these aspects and plus experience, then we will look at that factor and like, according to this, all you need is this type of certificate, it's this A+ computer program that you can do, and then we can actually support it, because we want to make sure that you actually don't waste your time, but also, your time is valuable in terms of you reaching your employment goal, but I know things fall into the cracks, but we do our best to really guide the client, and like, we don't want you to do all this work for nothing, like there are other options that you can do in terms of reaching your goal, and we want to make sure that we give them as much as those resources as possible.
Good. And then there was a curiosity question. Are there any high-tech companies that partner with DOR? For example, like Google, to hire disability clients with, who are able to do programming jobs or things like that?
Oh, good thing you asked that, because we are just finalizing talks of a program for Microsoft and Google. But also there's one, I think there's one from Microsoft right now. There's a program, I just don't know it for the top of my tongue, but they are finalizing it with our regional director for those programs. So
nice.
Keep on the lookout for those. So
great. And can people get adult work experience in a job that requires a college degree if that person has not had their degree yet?
Repeat it again.
Can a person get adult work experience in a job that requires a college degree if the person has not had their degree yet?
Yes. Yes. Like, yes. So let's say a computer specialist, you need a bachelor's degree for that, correct? So let's say you like to do a work experience. it can be possible to do a work experience. The only thing is, I think the biggest challenge is for us to find the location and the employer that is willing to provide the work experience and for us to pay them, pay the client to do the 100 hours. So it is possible to do it, like, especially if you're going to school and you wanted to do the work experience for like 100 hours, like it is possible.
Okay, great. I'll give you one more and then I'm gonna kind of summarize one that keeps coming through. But if you get fired, can the client be trained again by DOR? Or maybe get another career path, find another job training?
Yeah, but yes, but also we, I think the determining factor too is we need to find out why they got fired. Like that is a big thing, so it doesn't happen again. That's the like, what was it about that job that you didn't like, or what was it about that environment that really did not, it didn't work for you? So we determine that first. So once you go into revising your employment goal or revising your employment services, we're like, okay, this is what happened, But if it's a pattern, a repeated pattern, we need to figure out why that repeated pattern is happening like that. But yes, it could, we could do it again. Yes.
Mhm. And then, okay, so thank you for all of this. We have like a couple more minutes. And so I wanted to just kind of summarize some of the things that are coming up. So many of the people on the call here are thinking their physical needs and their communication needs are so complex that they're probably not going to be in a position that's more physical labor, like
Right.
or programming or something like that. So in terms of jobs, like someone was talking about, what if you wanted to go to law school? Can you find an internship there? And then people are talking about what kind of jobs does DOR help them find? What I'm hearing you say is that we can find whatever kind of job we want to find. Then you guys step in to help us be ready with the necessary steps and prepared, whether it be school or equipment or support in that initial 100 hours to make that happen.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Correct. There are possibilities, but also it's a collaborative effort too. We can't just say yes. I wish I could say yes to everything, but I can't in terms of policy and regulation. But especially when it comes to potential, programs and internships, it is possible, especially we can refer you to, Workability 3, we can refer you to those programs to assist, but it's a very collaborative effort in terms of what you like to pursue in, employment.
And then the other thing that is coming up a lot because of the communication partners, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but my understanding from what you're saying and then previous knowledge is that if you're a regional center client, then regional center can step in and be that support service provider, funding wise, for the communication partners.
Right. Yes.
If I needed a support person because I'm not safe in the community, regional center provides that person.
Right.
If I need support to go to my job writing on the newspaper in our community, regional center can provide that support person.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Yes.
You would help with the job training of that job.
Mm-hmm.
But the carryover of the support person would be funded through, I'm guessing, regional center.
Right. And especially the communication aspect of it, that's a lifelong and personal a necessity that the client needs. And for our program, we're just based on employment only. So once you've obtained your employment goal and once you got that job, the aid that we can possibly provide you, you're done with services. So we always recommend, regional center, especially regional center is a lifelong membership that you can have. And I wish we can do more, but we really do it based on employment only. So,
But it sounds more like it's about getting the employment. It's not about
Right.
having the employment.
right. It's about getting the employment. We don't provide placement. We don't place a client on the job. We encourage and we empower, and also we self-advocate for the client to take the initiative, and especially applying for positions, but also really think outside the box in terms, and I know a lot of parents here, they think outside the box, especially in terms of ideas. And for me, I always, especially for the client, I want them to know that, once you're done with employment services, I want you to feel empowered to do this all on your own, and to be able to really, be a self-advocate for it. So.
Can you have, if you have a regional center supported communication partner, for example, and then you need a job coach to help you with employment, is that an okay thing? Can DOR step in and do that?
Yeah, and DOR can provide the job coaching support, especially if they are referred by regional center to us, because we place them in the supportive employment program. So the job coaching can last for 4 months. During the duration of the 4 months, the job coaching hours are lowered to the point where the client is really comfortable enough to do the job, and the job coaching is transitioned into regional center.
All right, I'm going to pause us here because we have just a couple more minutes left of Jose's time. But I want to thank you, Jonathan. That was a lot of information, and thank you for staying on the call for the whole hour and a half. I think we picked your brain raw. So thank you. I want to thank everybody that is on the call today. And I see lots of threads going through here, and I'm going to make notes of that so we can continue these conversations amongst ourselves in the future as well. Next month is the third Tuesday of the month will be during the prior to Christmas week. So we're going to take that week, that session off, and we will come back in January. It'll be January 25th. So watch for information, but go ahead and mark your calendar, and we will pick up our conversation about access to communication there. All right, thank you, everybody.
And before we go, I just want to say that Jose deserves hazard pay for what we've put him through today as the interpreter. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Jose.
What folks don't know on your end is that I opened up the phone lines for people to hear him in Spanish and forgot to mute my phone. Then I left this meeting and got on a Zoom meeting with someone else, and he was hearing my voice. I realized it after a few minutes, but I apologize to you, Jose. You are the best. We love you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to everybody who has been so patient with us. This is not going to happen again. We figured out what the problem was. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Darlene.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.